Hey guys, welcome to my channel where we talk about all things true crime, crazy and unknown historical events, ghost phenomena, and more. I also travel to some of the locations that I talk about to explore them further, so if any of that is of interest to you, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button and also the bell icon if you want to join in on my upcoming adventures. As all of you probably have heard recently, Alec Baldwin was officially charged with involuntary manslaughter after the fatal accident with the firearm on the set of his new movie Rust. If you somehow haven't heard about this, or you didn't know this particular update in the case, I do have a whole video about this incident coming soon. Today's video, however, is going to discuss a few other fatal set disasters that have occurred over the years, and a lot of the rules followed on Hollywood sets today are because of these very incidents. I was also able to travel to one of the locations. Well, actually, my husband and I had to turn around due to a sketchy situation that I'll get into in a moment. But before I just ramble on and on, let's go ahead and get into today's video. The first fatal set disaster we are going to discuss today is that of the 1983 Twilight Zone movie disaster, which tragically killed 3 people. The movie was going to be a spin-off from the original TV series of the same name, which was created by Rod Serling. A number of directors were involved in 4 separate stories, including Steven Spielberg, Joe Dante, and George Miller. John Landis was the 4th director, and his segment was going to be about Vic Morrow's character, Bill Connor, a man that has to learn not to be prejudiced of others after being transported through the Twilight Zone, being transported to the Vietnam War. And at this part of the movie, Morrow would come across 2 Vietnamese children and try to save them in order to redeem himself and his self-worth and try to get back to his timeline. Morrow was known for his earlier roles in Hollywood, including the role of Sergeant Chip Saunders in ABC's Combat, which was a World War II drama that aired from 1962 to 1967. Throughout his career, Vic was typically typecasted as the tough guy or the villain in the story. The shooting of the scene began in the late evening hours of July 22nd, 1982, in the mountains of Santa Clarita, California, using a section of the Santa Clara River at the base of the Indian Dunes to replicate a little village in Vietnam. The Vietnamese children were played by 6-year-old Renee Shin Yi Chen and Micah Din Lee, and what makes this incident even worse is that these children were illegally hired by Landis to cut the cost of production, and he completely violated child labor laws. The children were also going to be paid in cash so that their names didn't have to appear on the payroll. At around 2:20 a.m., Morrow took his place in the Santa Clara River with a child under each arm. Before filming began, John Landis ordered the helicopter pilot, Dorsey Wingo, to fly lower as the explosives were set off behind the actors. On action, fireballs rose into the night sky, one coming a little too close to the aircraft, causing the pilot to lose control of the helicopter, plunging into the river on top of Morrow and the children. All 3 were instantly killed, Morrow being decapitated by the helicopter's whirling main rotor. Crew members and the parents of the children watched in horror as everything happened before them. Reportedly, after the crash, landed, "That's a wrap. Leave your equipment where it is. Everyone go home. Please, everyone go home." You can still find the footage of the crash, but for many reasons I will not be putting it in this video. However, I will go ahead and put a link of the video in the description below if you do want to watch it for yourself. In the aftermath of the fatal incident, the families of the deceased actors filed a series of lawsuits against Warner Brothers Studios, John Landis, and Steven Spielberg, including a couple others that were involved in the production. On June 15, 1983, Landis and 2 associates who assisted him in making the movie were indicted and charged with 2 counts of manslaughter in the deaths of the child actors. Landis also faced 3 additional counts of manslaughter for aggravated, reckless, and grossly negligent acts, resulting in the deaths of Morrow and the children. But in 1986, 4 years after the incident, John Landis was brought to trial again, and on May 29, 1987, after a lengthy and contentious trial, the jury acquitted him. Since then, he has directed many movies, including successful movies such as Coming to America in 1988 and Beverly Hills Cop 3, in 1994. The Twilight Zone movie officially opened in theaters June 24th, 1983, to dismal reviews, but was still financially successful, and the tragic scene was cut from the final film. An article came out shortly after the movie's release by Time magazine's critic Richard Corliss, which read, "The story hardly looks worth shooting, let alone dying for." As you may be able to tell from some of the footage I've included, this was the location that I attempted to find. However, there was a man in full camo with a rifle following my husband and I on the trail, and he did fire one shot that we did hear.
It didn't sound like they were aiming at us.
Giving benefit of the doubt to the situation, maybe he was illegally hunting, but the weird part is, at the very end of the trail, at this point we were probably about a mile or less from our car, and the man had been following us for about an hour. Our dog Honey started barking at something over the ledge of the trail, and I went to go see what it was, and it was the man loading his gun. Even though there was only one trail, at least one main trail, he somehow got ahead of us. Like, the only way that he could have gotten ahead of us is if he cut through the brush down the side of the mountain. We continued walking towards our car a little faster now, and he walked back onto the trail and continued following us. But we did make it to our car, and without situating ourselves whatsoever, we just sped out of there. My husband was a little mad at me though, because even though it was freaky, I did go there for one reason, and so I did stop a lot to keep filming things. But we did turn around, and unfortunately, I don't think we ever found the true location of where the tragedy happened. The next fatal set disaster that we're going to discuss is the fatal gunshot on the set of The Crow. I feel like this incident is a little more well known than the Twilight Zone movie disaster, especially after Alec Baldwin's recent incident, because it had eerily similar circumstances. The only son of professional martial arts fighter Bruce Lee, Brandon Lee, had mirrored his father by training in martial arts while he was studying acting and also helped choreograph fight scenes for movies. Brandon had starred in the very popular movie Legacy of Rage, where he played the role of Detective Johnny Murata. At the age of 28, he was cast as the main role in the highly anticipated movie The Crow as Eric Driven. Ironically, the movie's plot was about a murdered musician who is resurrected in order to avenge his and his fiance's death. But the filming of the movie was tragically cut short after Brandon was actually fatally shot. The scene was being filmed in Wilmington, North Carolina, and was the scene where Brandon's character does get shot by a gang member after forcing him to watch them kill his fiancée. Michael Massey, who was playing the gang member, fired the prop gun from approximately 12 to 15 feet as he walked into the room. The shot hit Brandon in the stomach, and he slumped forward rather than backwards, like the script had said. While the on-set crew originally believed he was acting and had just made a mistake, the magnitude of the accident soon became apparent, and he was quickly airlifted to a nearby hospital, where he underwent hours of surgery, but was confirmed dead shortly after on March 31st, 1993. In a previous scene, the exact same prop gun had been used and was fitted with dummy cartridges. Catastrophically, the prop crew made the decision to make their own dummy cartridges, removing the gunpowder, but left the primer still inside of the cartridge. So when the gun was fired in the scene with Brandon Lee, the revolver essentially discharged a live bullet. Lee's death was ruled an accident due to negligence, and Macy, who was extremely haunted by the incident, stopped acting for over a year. Until his own death in 2016, Macy made it clear that he would never watch The Crow, which was officially released in 1994. Although there are striking parallels to this case and the recent Rust incident, the outcomes of the two were very different. Like I said earlier, I do have a whole separate video that will cover the Rust incident, so turn on notifications and be on the lookout for that video when it does come out. The final incident that we're going to discuss today is the fatal accident on the 2014 set of Midnight Rider in rural Georgia. The film was actually going to be a biopic about Greg Allman, who's an American musician. The scene that was being filmed took place on a train track, and although the production said that the train schedule didn't show a scheduled train during their window of filming, something was missed, and during a take, a train began quickly approaching the bridge that they were on. The crew scrambled to get everyone and the equipment off of the bridge in time, but unfortunately, camera operator Sarah Jones was struck by the train, along with some of the equipment, which ricocheted off of the bridge and hit some of the crew. The production was seen as negligent in this incident because they didn't have the proper permissions to be on the tracks, regardless of knowing the train schedule or not. Prosecutors filed criminal charges against the director, who did plead guilty to the involuntary manslaughter and criminal trespassing charges. He was sentenced to 2 years in jail and fined $74,900 by OSHA. However, he was released after only serving 1 year. In the aftermath, Sarah Jones's parents created a foundation which is dedicated to the improvement of set safety, which I will say, in the past few years that I've worked on sets, I've never necessarily felt like I was in danger or anything. Don't get me wrong, accidents can happen, which is clear from today's video. But for example, due to incidents like the fatal shooting of Brandon Lee, anytime that I've worked with guns on a set, they do go through a complete safety check of the prop with myself and other actors that may be handling the prop gun present in order to ensure our safety and comfortability handling the prop. And for that matter, I was really shocked that the Alec Baldwin situation even occurred. But that's going to do it for today's video. If you want to check out more cases similar to these that I didn't go over today, then check out the description for the links to the articles that I used for my research. If you learned something new or you just like this kind of content, please make sure to put a like on the video to let me know. And if you do enjoy content like this, plus more such as ghost phenomena, then definitely subscribe to the channel for more. And really quickly, as a quick reminder, I will be posting that video about Alec Baldwin really soon, so just keep a lookout for that. But as always, I appreciate any and all support, and I will see you in my next upload.